आशीष यूट्यूब स्ट्रीम लाइव कर दो। गुड आफ्टरनून समीर जी।
Afternoon.
Good
Hello.
afternoon. Good afternoon, sir. Sir,
Hi.
we will wait for 2-3 minutes.
No problem at all. That's fine. Sure.
Good. Glad to meet you.
Yeah, likewise.
Dear student, I request to kindly focus on the today's session. Today's session is also very much important. It is related to API and integration. If you have any query regarding the hackathon result or the transport and everything, as far as result is concerned, very soon the result shall get displayed. Just wait for some time. Today, maximum tomorrow morning, get display. However, I request whoever is present right now in this session, kindly focus on your technical part first. We will be starting the session maybe in a 2-3 minutes. Seema, Ashish.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will start in a minute.
Okay.
Kindly give the rights to the presenter also.
Sure, sir.
Okay, Samirji, shall we start?
Yes, sure, sure.
Sure. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, all students, participants. I'm glad that you have put an interest for this API and integration technical session also. And with your request, we have scheduled today's session, who is going to address by the eminent speaker called Mr. Samir Sabarwal. Samir Sabarwal is from TCS. He has around 28 years of experience. He is working as a principal innovation evangelist with TCS Corporate Research and Innovation team. Mr. Sarim is an agile innovation cloud, that is AIC, that is Agile Innovation Cloud Initiative, that establish co-innovation partnership with the clients. Sarim is responsible for conceptualizing new innovation model, identifying and engaging co-innovation efforts, and bringing together to TCS and external innovation ecosystem for the benefit of the clients. In his role, Samir works across multiple industries and geographies, bringing the best innovation insight to the work for the TCS client. Samir holds the MBA degree from Yale University, USA. He has significant global experience and has worked across full spectrum of business settings, from startup to medium and large scale enterprise. So with this small introduction and the impressive expertise, we have Mr. Samir Sabarwal with us. Welcome, Samir ji. I welcome for this fourth session of the Smart India Hackathon training mentoring session.
Yep.
Just to brief you, sir, these all participants are the aspiring, I would say, aspiring evangelists and the technocrats, future technocrats of India. They have the basic understanding of the APIs as well. And with this remark, I request you to take to you, sir.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep. Hello, all. Good to connect. So yes, as mentioned, I'll take you through the API session, and I think as has been introduced, I take it that a lot of you are at least somewhat to very familiar with APIs. So, but nonetheless, I will cover the basics as well. But I'm going to assume that, right? And so therefore, I'm going to come at it more from an applications angle, and some of the key things that you need to look out for as you do API development, as you build functionality for applications, and how it's particularly relevant for a hackathon type of setting, which is what you're going to be immediately kind of using it for, right? So that's the sort of background. I'll keep the focus more, like I said, on the techno functional, more on the functional aspects, and we can probably hopefully take it from there. All right, so let me share my slideware. And also in terms of introduction, I think Pradeep has already done that very well for myself. As mentioned, I'm with the TCS Co-Innovation Network, COIN we call it in short. Right. Yeah, hopefully you can see my slides.
Yes, it is visible, sir.
Okay, great. So I'm part of the TCS Co-Innovation Network, which is part of the larger research and innovation team led by the CTO of TCS. Our co-innovation network is, and if I may say, we are going to be talking about APIs, right, which is sort of the backbone of modern innovation, right? It ensures seamless connectivity and technological advancement, as we all know. And what I'm doing as part of Co-Innovation Network is really quite similar to APIs, right? Which is what you're really trying to do. So let's start there. Um, our Co-Innovation Network team, a COIN team, essentially looks at innovation outside of TCS, right? And we try to connect with innovation happening around the world outside of our own organization, right? Sometimes this is often encapsulated, often captured in a concept called open innovation, in which again the basic is that you don't rely only on your own capabilities or research and development skill sets and so on and so forth, but you leverage the wider innovation available, with startups, with other companies outside. It could be your vendors, right, and your suppliers, if you will, as well. You could leverage academia, so research going on over there as well could be something that you leverage. So the overall concept of open innovation is that, and really our coin team is modeled on that to get over, as they call it, the not invented here syndrome, right? So this not invented here syndrome is a short way of encapsulating this this sort of behavioral trait, right, amongst managers uh, and technologists to say that whatever we've developed, that is the best, and to ignore all the other great stuff that's happening around the world, right? And I think why that's important is because it's hard. You cannot control innovation, right? Everyone, I mean, a lot of uh, governments, countries, organizations try it, and certainly you can certainly by funding, by certain efforts and so on and so forth, you can try and go in a certain direction. But as you know, discoveries, particularly breakthrough discoveries, right, are hard to pinpoint, right? They happen almost by chance sometimes, right? So a researcher might be in their labs working on something. I think wasn't it penicillin that was one of the ones that really caught someone's attention. And I think X-ray also likewise was not something that the researcher was had specifically set out to do, right? It's something that they found while they were researching. It was something that they discovered. And so I think what I'm trying to say is that's hard. And we've seen with countries as well. If you look at even the last 10 or 20 years, 20 years, even in the US, when you look at let's say Obama, for example, was focused on renewables and so on. And I think the US had a lot of success at that time on shale drilling, oil and gas, and also the web 2.0, that we now say social media, essentially, right? Facebook, etc., etc. So companies and countries try to shape the direction of research and innovation, but oftentimes it's hard to predict where innovation catches the fancy of people, and what really takes off at that particular point in time. And therefore, I think it's really important to stay clued in to what others are doing, so that you can build on those capabilities and you make sure you're not reinventing the wheel, right? If somebody else is working on something, maybe you can sort of piggyback on that and take it forwards. So with that, let me I'm reminded of what Steve Jobs, when he launched the App Store, right? The story goes that Steve Jobs was not particularly keen on the App Store. In fact, he was opposed to the App Store initially, but then others kind of convinced him, and he came around to the perspective that yes, this is let's go ahead and have the App Store on the iPhone, and the rest, as they say, is history, right? So, thanks to the App Store, as you can see, we are able to extend the functionality of the device, right? So suddenly you have maps, you now have Zomato food delivery, you have all kinds of things, camera feeds, you name it, right? IoT, healthcare, feeds into your phone, etc., etc. So all of that, it has been become possible because other developers have been able to add to the functionality, the core functionality of the device, of the operating system, right? So clearly the APIs are a core part of this idea that you don't try to build everything in house. Is there a way, can we build on the backs of other folks who might have already discovered, invented, worked on certain functionality. Let's like kind of take it forwards from there, right? And that's where APIs form the backbone of modern innovation, as mentioned. So let me take it forwards from there and introduce APIs. So what exactly is an API? APIs act as bridges that enable communication between different software components, and they facilitate data sharing. By the way, if you have any questions in the middle, please feel free to kind of stop me in the middle. All right. So they act as bridges that enable communication between different software components, and that means that they are able to, essentially, you can call, you can build on other capabilities, other functionality that might be part of some other application, really, right? So in terms of development, developers use APIs to integrate advanced features, like it could be machine learning, could be payment gateways, and you can do that. You can leverage all of that without having to reinvent all of those things, right? So somebody already has a payment gateway out there, you can leverage it. You can pass certain instructions to your programming, and then get back certain whatever data that you're looking for, analytics, or the outcome. Has the payment successfully been made or not made? Based on that, you can move forward, right? And so what are the benefits? A few things, actually. So one is that they promote modularity. Through APIs, we are now able to do modular programming. So you can focus on whatever it is, the new stuff that you're looking to create, right? You don't have to reinvent, as we said, the payment gateway or the machine learning, maybe the model that has already been done. You can literally take advantage of it and move forward. So it's very modular. You could build one piece, I could be building another piece, and then all of it comes together for a user's application. So we oftentimes, and the reason I was talking about coin and the external thing, we often refer to it as an ecosystem of innovation. So that's what APIs are allowing us to do, is to leverage technologies through an ecosystem of innovation, right? The other thing APIs help around is around scalability. Again, because we have APIs, so you could, let's say, you could leverage a cloud, right? And within the cloud you could have various functionality, like, let's say, image recognition, and you could pass some data stream to it, leverage that API, that capability, come back, get the results, and then move forward with your processing after that, right? Rapid development, of course, because you're saving time. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, you don't have to do the whole coding again. You just piggyback on someone else's work, and this also allows, if I may, commensurately, there can be new commercial models as a result of this. A lot of SaaS type of models, a lot of models, where you're paying by time, so by the month, by the week. You could pay by data, right? By megawatt, whatever, in the megabytes, etc., based on the data that you're passing back and forth. So any number of new creative ways of commercializing, monetizing that capability now becomes possible. And so this is absolutely critical for hackathons, because you have limited time, right? Here you can rapidly scale, you can do things quickly, and you want to focus on a core thing, right? So let's say you want to demonstrate to me some analytics around healthcare. You don't want to be start going doing some other development around how are you going to extract some data that might have already been done. So if you have access to APIs that can give you the basics that you need to develop your proposition, your coding proposition, that's what APIs allow you to do, to quickly move on and demonstrate the art of the possible, right? And from an analogy sort of standpoint, APIs, you might say, are like restaurant menus, right? So they allow users to order without actually knowing what's in the kitchen. So I just have the interface. I know that I can pass, like I said, I pass a certain amount, a transaction, to a payment gateway. I can get back that, does that, has that payment been made? Did it go through? Was it successful? Did it fail? Or was it aborted? And then based on that, I can actually build out some sort of functionality beyond that. So in that sense, it's like a restaurant menu, right? Now, this is a slide that I'm using from TCS. So this is a API-based platform that we ourselves have, right? So we have a platform that we used to call Cubo and TCS Cubo actually, and we've used it as part of our banking system, our core banking system. So you can see on the left-hand side, you have a bank's marketplace ecosystem. So here we've integrated a lot of startups, right? So you see some startups mentioned there, and that allows us or other users, developers, to actually build functionality around the startups, and that functionality stays on the platform, right? And essentially, it allows us to innovate far more quickly, right? So creating new revenue business models, as I mentioned, building on the cloud, remotely managing the upgrades. So all of these features become possible because of this cloud based API ecosystem that we've created, platform, and that is now available to many of our customers around the world. So again, some of these basics would be you'd be well aware of, but let me just step through them so that we are clear that certain best practices have to be followed when it comes to designing APIs, for example. So core principles include that you should follow simplicity. There should be consistency of the way that you're going to present the API. You have to look at security. Security is absolutely critical, and you have to ensure that they're both intuitive and reliable for developers, right? Security is critical because, like I said, you can leverage a functionality of another application, but then that could lead to a security hack. So therefore, that is important that whatever the exposure to the application is only as much as is required. You don't have a wider uh, surface area for some kind of a malicious attack, for example. Second is there are many popular API architectures like REST, GraphQL, gRPC architectures that offer different benefits based on use cases like simplicity, flexibility, performance. Clear endpoints are critical, and predictable responses help reduce development time and errors, especially in fast-paced hackathon type of environments, which is what you're going to be indulging in. And then finally, obviously, robustness and scalability is critical to APIs because you might be handling a lot of traffic. There could be multiple threads running in the application that are calling on these APIs. So the API has to be able to handle all of that, and in case of errors as well, all the error handling, etc., has to be done elegantly, transparently, and robustly as well. Documentation for APIs, good documentation is absolutely critical. It reduces onboarding time for developers. It improves developer collaboration as well, obviously. Right. So while documentation is critical for all sort of coding projects, right? API is a lot more because the whole point of APIs is basically interaction. Is that third party coders who actually have no idea about the API should be able to kind of call on them, get work done, and then move on, be able to do something with the output created or sent back by the API. So therefore, documentation is absolutely critical for this. Just because the developers don't have access to the underlying code, they only have access to the API. So therefore, they've got to be able to understand what it is that I need to transmit to the API, what is it that I'm going to get back, and how can I use that information, right? The components of the documentation include examples, endpoints, error codes, and authentication details. So these are some components. There are tools obviously for documentation. You can use Swagger, Postman, Redoc, Automate, and to visualize API docs more easily. And then finally, you have to have best practices like you keep the documents updated, keep them concise, provide samples for quick understanding and for successful integration. So this is some of the bits around documentation, right? So API integration and use cases. So how do you integrate third-party services? First, let's look at third-party APIs, right? So third-party APIs What they do is they accelerate development by adding key existing functionalities and services to applications seamlessly. Let's go back to some of the examples that I was talking about earlier. So, think about Google, right? When they opened the Maps API, off the back of that, Uber is a good example. Uber came about of the Maps, the Google Maps API, as soon as that was opened up to the public at large, right? So just imagine how powerful APIs well and truly are. And through that map system, again, we get GPS, we all our food delivery kind of services, right? All the location based kind of services sprouted after Google effectively opened up its Maps API. So just imagine the thing, and a whole economy has come up, around this kind of thing, right? Airbnb, etc. All of them came up after that, and so this whole thing about gig economy, etc. really came in. The other would be fintech. So we are all now used to, using Google Pay, using Phone Pay, Paytm, etc., to make payments. But the fintech ecosystem again relies on APIs, right? Fundamentally, they are accessing our bank information, and because all the banks were, they were sort of independent islands of functionality, of data, and so on and so forth. There was no way for a third party or an app, etc., to cut across all these banks, right? So you had to go to your bank, you had to go to State Bank of India or PNB or HDFC, whatever, stand in queue or whatever it is, and then make the transfer to the other bank. But now, because APIs are available, we can use third party apps like a Google Pay or a Phone Pay or a Paytm, etc., and many others. And what they do is they just call on the APIs that have been created by these banks, and that allow them to transfer money across, across different banks, and also to, query or how much money you have in your bank balance, for example, right? So all of that is now that has been exposed by the bank, and look at the a whole economy that has come up as a result of that, right? So small things, small APIs things. That's why APIs, we are saying, they are absolutely critical to the new innovation ecosystem, really, right? The other, again, if you think of flights and trains, right? If you want to, nowadays, even trains, I mean, of course, flights also, you can literally track them. You can even put down the train, the train number, and you can get a real time status of the running schedule of the train, right? Again, the Indian Railways has obviously made that data is with them, I presume, and that data has been opened up so that third party apps can now show you precisely what the train is. So a lot of this kind of functionality, and you don't know at the time when you make data available, you don't know, what people will make out of it. How much more new innovative functionality is going to be created is sometimes hard to figure out. So as you can see, again, that also relies on, on these kind of things, right? So popular APIs for AI hackathons particularly include APIs like OpenAI for natural language processing, Google Vision for image recognition, Twilio for communications, enhancement, and so on. So many of these APIs you can think of, and also another one that I'd put in is probably the US health data, the healthcare data, right? There's an open system over there that was, in fact, launched during Obama's time, if I remember correctly, and that's a very popular, source for a lot of, especially American healthcare data. So that's possible, and then there are others, like even weather, if I may again. If you look at weather, right? So everyone's now using that IQ Air and stuff like that. I mean, how does Google Weather, for example, if I open my phone, how does Google Air actually know precisely, first of all, where I am? So it's picked up that I'm in New Delhi. It's picked up what the current temperature is, what's the high and low for the day. It's telling me the pollution, the PM 2.5 index. It's showing me daily forecast, and so on and so forth, and the forecast for the next 10 days or something like that. So obviously Google is not doing this for all cities and all the countries all around the world. this data is there from the Indian Meteorological Department. They are clearly picking it up and they are repackaging it, and they're using analytics to project, right, to forecast the weather and present it back to me. So this is fantastic, use of existing data without APIs, without which it would be completely clueless. So modern technology is absolutely dependent and driven by APIs. It's actually a game break, sort of it's a path breaking technology, really, right? In fact, to the point where I wonder why it wasn't actually invented or discovered or used, previously. And my best guess is that basically both programmers and I think more generally companies, etc., they all tend to want control, and they want to do it everything themselves, right? So from start to finish, I want to start my, open the class, I want to define my own, metrics and so on, I want to close my my class and my project, my code, and so on and so forth. I want complete control of it. And I mentioned about Apple, Steve Jobs in the past. So again, Apple has this thing, they want to control, they want to do both the hardware and the software because they want to guarantee some sort of a user experience, right? Because they are so driven by user experience, the only way to do that is if you own the entire value chain, right, of the device. That if I can build both the hardware and the software, so you can understand why they might want to control every aspect of it. But again, as we showed through the third party, API kind of a environment, I think the innovation just multiplies. It in fact it explodes the moment you allow third parties to innovate, with you. And I'll give another example a little bit later around the cloud and so on, which again, where APIs are, absolutely critical. And the third thing here on this slide I want to talk about is simplifying the integration process. So again, there are API aggregators like Rapid API that provide unified platforms to discover and to integrate multiple APIs easily. Okay, so now in terms of innovative applications across industries, the first one up there is healthcare integration. So APIs enable telemedicine and also wearables data integration, enhancing patient care and accessibility in healthcare. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. Um, Wearables are, you know, an absolutely disruptive innovation to my mind, because they've got IoT, they've got IoT sensors and so on and so forth. You're adding that to humans, to healthcare, to human healthcare. They're constantly monitoring your key biomarkers, and therefore and they're able to feed that back, right? They're able to feed that back using APIs. Sorry, was there a question? Yeah. And so they are able to feed all that data back to, a software module, a software dashboard where the analytics can be done and presented to the user. Um, so this is absolutely critical. Back in when during COVID, they actually did a research study and they found that using Fitbits, right, back in the day, they found that people were able to realize that they had symptoms of COVID, if you will, right, about 2 days before they actually realized that they had it, right? So if they weren't wearing the Fitbit, they would, let's say, they would present themselves to the doctor, typically, 4 days or 5 days after exposure. But with the wearing Fitbits, the Fitbit would alert them that there's, some of your biomarkers are out of whack, uh, you know, within sort of 2 days. Now, in a fast moving viral disease like COVID was, right? Those 2 days can be absolutely crucial, right? That's the power of wearables. And in fact, you see, fundamentally, I think this can transform the healthcare sector, because if you think about it, how it normally works is, we present ourselves to doctors when something goes, typically something's not working, right? Something's wrong, clearly wrong. Then we normally go to a doctor. I think in the more uh, maybe health conscious and even otherwise generally advanced countries, in general, people do have annual kind of checkups, and they kind of take care that all of that is done. I think in India we are probably still a little bit lax on that front. If you are doing that, great. So but max, that's what you'll do. You'll maybe go to the doc once a year. Like in the UK, they have this thing that they call the MOT, right? So the cars every year, you need an MOT. So it's basically a certificate to that says that okay, your car is motorable, right? So just like our pollution check or whatever. So there you got to do a full. So there the mechanic actually, and only certain authorized mechanics have to go through the entire vehicle, and they've got to say the brakes are working and this is okay, and it's fit for the road. um, so the same thing you're doing. Basically, you're going to the doc once a year. You're doing some diagnostic tests and so on and so forth. But in general, you'll otherwise, go to the doc only when something is wrong. Right now, imagine what this does. Right, if you're wearing, Fitbit or any wearable, an Apple Watch or other Android kind device, right, watch, etc. It is monitoring your key biomarkers at all times. So the Apple Watch, etc. They have these things. I think they call them um, vitals, right? So they monitor those vitals at all times, and the moment it's out of whack, it could be alerted. So the doctors, you could have a scenario tomorrow where doctors are proactively actually, keeping track of their patients, right? And the moment anybody's vitals are out of their baseline numbers, they could actually flag it up. You could have the doctor proactively reaching out to you and saying that, hey, I think something's amiss. Can you come in for a checkup? Right. So that changes the paradigm, and because you're able to do that only because your all your vitals are being monitored at all times. I think the Apple Watch now has even added blood pressure, for example. I think in its newest, avatar, right? So some of these things may not be perfect, but they are we're kind of getting there. And again, it's possible through IoT sensors and APIs that enable that data exchange between the device, the software, and the various functionality, right? That goes around it. So that's something on the healthcare. On financial, of course, on finance, I've talked about payment systems, payment gateways, right, and so on. And so fraud detection, all of that again, APIs very efficiently, work on, right. The other one is retail. So in retail as well, you can think about APIs, how they personalize recommendations, inventory management, boosting the customer engagement as well, right? So APIs are again core to retail also. And finally, automotive connectivity. In terms of automotive connectivity, again, I think many of you might be familiar with CarPlay on Android Play, right? So which connects to the car. But more importantly, even remote diagnostics, navigation features. So just like the doctor in healthcare, again, you can imagine that predictive maintenance, for example, could become a big feature, so that your workshop knows before you. In fact, so because I'm part of the Tata Group, right, Tata Consultancy Services, so our Jaguar Land Rover is a Tata Group company, and so we know that they have actually already looked at predictive maintenance, where they are able to you know detect if any particular car is likely to have a problem that leads to a breakdown or some other bit, or service might be required. So they're able to pick up on that, and you have that servicing based on the actual running and the performance, right, of the car, not based on time. Because right now we service cars, okay, every once a year or once in 6 months. That's an approximation. So here they are able to, through their sensors, they are able to pick up exactly the health of the car, and actually just call the owner and tell them that, look, I think you need to bring your car in for a service or some repair or whatever it is, right? So those kind of things are coming in. Of course, it's there in aviation also. They have these kind of things going on as well. So what is the future of APIs? Let's look at the trends and the possibilities. So one of the first things is that now we are looking at API first development, right? So initially what happened is generally, we people would code, and then they would think, okay, now how can I now build an API that allows me to expose some of the functionality, lean on some of the external functionality. How do I do that? Now the thing is, we have to turn the question the other way around. We've got to build for APIs and microservices, right? So that's what is known as API first development. And particularly in the AI driven age, this is absolutely critical, right? So even when I was helping look for an ERP system for my school, again we were aware, and therefore we asked that we want something that can be customized, that can be extended through the right type of functionality. And again, the only way to do that is via APIs. So obviously the OEM vendor shared with us, their some of the underlying functionality and the APIs that would allow us to extend the functionality of that core system, right? So anything wherever you need to do that, again, it'll have to be modular, it'll have to be API driven, and that's the mark, I would say, of a good system today. If the system does not have an API driven build, then that's a poorly made system, because it can't be extended. I'm going to have to depend on you to rework the
Hello.
whole thing, and then only can I move forward, right? The other thing is, I think we are also looking at self-healing APIs. We're looking at quantum computing, right, and integration to quantum computing. So all of that opens up new possibilities for both resilient and also of advanced APIs. There are challenges, of course, in API management, because now that you have so many APIs, right, you got to manage those APIs, and so having tools and platforms to manage the API sprawl, as it's sometimes called, that becomes a critical challenge, right? Particularly in hyper-connected digital ecosystems, right? Um, right? And of course, best practices for APIs include adopting best practices and tools that are essential for maintaining API performance, reliability, and security. And also, some of the things that I mentioned in terms of API usage, is also through cloud. Now that most of the AI is particularly being deployed by in the cloud, right? We have a whole host of companies, of code, of functionality that's coming up around that. And so, for example, in the we have I've come across a startup that does camera video analytics, right? So what they do is essentially they allow you to upload your camera feed, and this can be in retail, for example. So at retail earlier we talked about. So retail cameras are already there. That feed can be put onto the cloud, right? Directed to the cloud, and these guys are available. They process that feed, they give analytics around that feed, and they pass that back to the customer, right? Now what that allows the customer to do is to literally have a pay as you go type of option. So I don't have to set up a massive system at my end. I just have to set up an API that pushes the data to the to this cloud hosted application, and they do the rest for me, right? So therefore it's a pay as you go system. The customer can now just pay by the month, try it out. So it's very easy, no major investment required initially. If you like it, you continue, right? And you can see those kind of uh, subscription based models come up. As you can see, there are so many subscription-based models, and again, APIs have enabled or added to that, to that whole possibility. Um, Now, in terms of potential disruptors, there are a few disruptors. Let's look at that. Two APIs. One is AI to AI communication. So, in this world of AI, in this new world of AI, if I may, right? The thing is that if AI agents are able to talk to one another, get all the data that they need, right, etc. What is the need for APIs? So essentially, that could be APIs could become part, or they could be embedded within the AI agent itself, right? So that's one sort of potential disruptor for APIs in the future. The other one is low code no code platforms, which again similarly, if I can very easily through a few clicks maybe just rework my code, then again the need for APIs reduces. But don't forget, through all of this, I did mention that um, that there is a mindset change, the ability to be able to leverage other functionality. That is still there, but yeah, some of this might alter the need for APIs as we understand them right now. The third could be blockchain-based APIs. So, blockchain decentralized APIs could again provide secure and transparent data exchange models. So, conventional API methods could be disrupted. And then finally, adaptability for developers. Developers must stay informed, adaptable to leveraging emerging tech, right, while ensuring system compatibility and performance. Even the underlying code has to keep, may need to change. And as it changes, the APIs might need to be updated, changed, modified in some way, shape, or form. So that is critical. So, in terms of practical tips and resources from a hackathon perspective, um, look, first focus on one feature, right? Don't try to do too much. Start small by building a minimum viable product, an MVP, with just one API, one feature to ensure feasibility. That's the best way. Take it one at a time. Use API aggregators to quickly discover and integrate multiple services efficiently. You can test with mock data, use mock data to test the applications so you avoid any last minute issues and surprises, and therefore you ensure reliability. And of course, document the API usage, keep clear documentation of the usage to facilitate teamwork and future development. So those are some ideas in terms of resources, API testing and documentation. While Postman offers comprehensive tools for API testing and detailed documentation to streamline development workflows. Swagger is a good one for API design framework to design and visualize APIs, enhancing clarity, collaboration on API projects. Rapid API is an aggregation platform for thousands of APIs. Can be, you can work on them, simplifying the process of finding, integrating diverse APIs more efficiently. And then finally, in terms of advanced AI integration, OpenAI's API documentation supports developers in integrating advanced AI capabilities with detailed guidance as well. Real world applications across industries, I think we covered quite a few, but e-commerce is another one. So APIs help synchronize inventory, personalized shopping through AI powered recommendations in e-commerce platforms, right? A lot of these things, they might be hosted elsewhere. The e-commerce platform literally makes a call, gets the data, does the analytics, and presents it back to the user. Healthcare connectivity, we talked about, about our healthcare devices, right, watches and others, Fitbits and so on and so forth. But equally, electronic health records, labs, insurers, telemedicine apps, all of those are enabled through APIs. And finance and open banking, again, APIs enable linking accounts, facilitating payments, online services of various sorts, right? All of those are good examples of APIs. And there are, Europe is, for example, leads a lot of the effort in defining open API or an open banking, right? Requirements for open banking. So some of the emerging trends and B2D use cases, logistics and supply chains, APIs integrate with carriers for real-time tracking and automating warehouses, again using IoT and GPS data. In education, we find a lot of APIs using learning management systems, video platforms, AI to personalize student learning paths. And in smart cities and IoT kind of trends, right? Smart cities, I mean, it's endless. You can figure out any number of ways to use IoT and use APIs to, get information, automate a lot of the council work, right? The city work. And governments, they expose data sets, so you can tap into them and leverage your build for the hackathon. That is important because I think how how quickly you do it and how clearly, what kind of a solution is your solution, very clear or is it very broad? The more narrow it is, the better it is, because obviously then we can figure out that you are working towards a particular solution. And the way you do that is that you leverage whatever governments have provided data. We talked about, for example, the railways, right? There might be other systems like that that have opened up their uh, databases, right, or provided some sort of APIs to access a lot of that data. Like it could be around migrant data, it could be around poverty, income levels, and so on and so forth. So some of that data, if you can access that, you can build your solutions around that. Then that's a good possibility as well. So that's all I have. Open to questions from you guys. Back to you, Pradeep. Pradeep, over to you.
Thank you, sir. Now, guys, the question and answer round starts. If you have any questions related to the today's session, then you may ask.
Are you? Let me ask you. Are you guys? Are you expecting to leverage APIs significantly as part of your hackathon efforts? Is that something that you've thought about? As you get into the next level. Okay, Cheru, okay. A few people are saying yes. Great, very good. So I think that'll be very important for you to to develop your solutions rapidly and also more effectively. And hopefully you'll have access to a lot of those data sets that can make your solutions a lot more usable, right? For the for the rollout, etc. So I think that's a good thing to do. I think there was a question around what should documentation include, right? So remember I talked about the importance of the documentation, so that's a given. But also you can look at the different components. So examples, endpoints, error codes, authentication, details. Those are all things that you will need to look at, right? You can use certain tools like Swagger, Postman, Redoc. You have to keep the docs updated. They have to be concise. They shouldn't be needlessly extensive. And also you have to provide samples for quick understanding and successful integrations as well. So is there any API available to integrate AI analytics to the workflow, is the question, right? Once again, just okay. So I'm just looking at the messages right now. So the Divyansh, I think, right, has is there any API available to integrate AI analytics to the workflow? And main points for the API documentation I just mentioned. So I think again you'll have to probably explore that for the workflow. You'll have to see what is the best means. Lalit is also mentioned. Yeah. So in terms of NLP APIs, right? You can look at Google Cloud. You can look at DeepSeek API. You can look at Monkey Learn API, right? And also from speech recognition. So depending on exactly what you're looking at. If you look at speech recognition, you could be looking at Google Cloud speech to text, right? AWS SageMaker, for example, right? Google Cloud API or AI platform, for example, right? Runway ML API, and so on. So the other question I think Lalit had was how to access API which can only be obtained by contacting organizations. I mean, is there a proper process? Yeah, I think this is something, Pradeep, that you'll have to answer, because yes, if it's not a free to use API, then as Lalit points out, I think that's something that we'll have to find from the organizers. And in fact, one of the things I think of good hackathons is that because depending on the platform, having access to reasonably good APIs that will allow you to quickly create your solutions is important. But again, depending on your functionality, Lalit, if I may, that's a good point. You should bring it up to the notice of the organizers and figure out if you can get access to the specialized API that you might be looking for. Bhaskar is asking, how is authentication handled for token-based, role-based access? How is authentication handled in terms of token-based or role-based access, right? Okay, let me. So authentication, see, for role-based access, I think what you need to do is you need to have API access that involves a multi-step process. So, particularly to your question of how is the authentication handled, it'll involve roles, it'll look at permissions, it'll look at access tokens, right? All of those, policy enforcement. It'll look at all of those. That's the way it's normally, done. Hope that answers your question. Okay, great, Lalit. Thanks. What's the best way to prevent API key leaks in client-side apps? Asks Jayant. What's the best way to prevent API key leaks in client-side apps, and how do you rate limit users who come from shared IP addresses? Okay, so Jayant, let me answer your question. What's the best way to prevent API key leaks in client-side apps? Uh, Really, the way to do this is avoid client-side exposure. So first of all, don't embed API keys directly in client-side code. Use environment variables or secrets management, right? So for server-side applications, store the API keys and environment variables during the handling, right? Do not commit to version control. Encrypt sensitive data in databases, so keys in databases, configuration files, ensure they're encrypted. Obviously, access restrictions and least privilege, so you restrict by IP address, by referral URL, mobile app, etc. Restrict by API usage. Implement granular, permissions, right? At the most granular that you need. Of course, monitor the API key usage and then delete. Most importantly, delete the API keys that are not needed anymore. For example, you can use restricted API keys, RAKs, instead of secret keys, for example. Okay. Pradeep, I think we've addressed a lot of the questions, most of the questions that have come in. Okay, Jent, there's a further question. How do you rate limit users who come from? This is a previous one, right? So, can you give a brief info about how do we integrate API in our program? How do you integrate? No. So that will depend on the, like I think asked earlier, depends on what API you are wanting to use, right? Obviously, first of all, scout that what does that API do, what access does it provide you, and in the documentation for the API, you'll be able to figure out exactly how do you integrate that in as part of your larger application, right? What information you need to send it, how do you want to access data back from the API? All of that is usually put out in the documentation for the API. That's pretty straightforward, Divyansh. But yeah, you'll have to do your research about the API and the functionality that you're trying to access. Right, Divyansh? Sure. Okay. So if there aren't any further questions, Pradeep, maybe we can close it here. Over to you.
So thank you everyone for your active participation, and a special thank to our trainer Sri Samir Sabharwal for sharing valuable knowledge and guidance. We wish all SIH 2025 participants the very best for your journey and innovations. Stay motivated, stay creative, and keep innovating for India. Have a great day ahead. Now we are closing the session. Okay, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Ashish. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Right.
sir.
All the
Thank you
best.
so much.
All the best for the hackathon.
Okay, thank you, sir.